"Why are you reaching into her apron?" Dante Moretti asked, and the entire glass dining room went still. Elena Brooks stood beside the fallen silver tray with one hand over her pregnant belly and blood bright on her split lip. A wineglass rolled beneath a table. Her old phone glowed under a linen cart, still recording. Adrian Vale's fingers remained hooked in the torn pocket where she had hidden the red receipt book. Then Dante's 8-year-old daughter ran forward, wrapped both arms around Elena, and screamed, "Mom!" 3 hours earlier, Elena had been counting the seconds between the tightening pains in her lower back while polishing champagne flutes no one would remember she had touched. Bellwether's Sunday family brunch was already glowing beneath the winter sun. All white tablecloths, crystal, and expensive laughter. Beyond the glass walls, Lake Michigan looked like hammered steel. Inside, donors wrote checks large enough to erase Elena's medical debt without noticing the missing ink. She adjusted the black apron beneath her stomach. At 7 months pregnant, there was no graceful way to bend over a low table, but customers still watched her body as though it had violated the dress code. "Careful with the pastries," one woman murmured to her friend. "Some people take eating for too very seriously." Neither woman laughed. They smiled into their coffee instead. That was worse. Elena kept her face steady. Waitresses were paid to smile, even when their fingers went numb around the tray. She needed the job. More than that, she needed the health insurance attached to it. The baby had kicked through most of the night, and the hospital bill folded inside her purse already carried 3 red notices. So she moved carefully between the tables, carrying too much and apologizing for none of it. Beneath the order pad in her apron sat a small red guest checkbook. For 6 weeks, Elena had been copying numbers from receipts that should not have changed after closing. Tips disappeared first. Then vendor charges appeared under different names. The names changed. The deposit code did not. N17-44. She had circled it 12 times. At 11:15, Nora Moretti slipped away from her nanny and found Elena beside the service station. The little girl had not spoken clearly in nearly 2 years. She communicated by tapping tables, tugging sleeves, and staring until Elena understood. Today, Nora pressed a purple crayon into Elena's palm, then turned Elena's plastic name tag over. On the back, in crooked letters, she had written MOM. Elena's throat tightened. "That's a very big word," she whispered. Nora touched Elena's wrist once. "Yes." Across the room, Dante Moretti lowered the contract he had been reading. His gaze moved from his daughter's hand to Elena's face. Then to the name tag she quickly turned inward. He did not smile. Men like Dante did not give away reactions. But he stopped listening to the lawyer beside him. That lawyer was Adrian Vale, Elena's ex-fiancé. Adrian crossed the room with the smooth patience of a man who never needed to hurry because paperwork usually arrived before his victims understood they were trapped. His charcoal suit fit perfectly. His expression carried concern polished to a shine. "Elena," he said softly, placing a cream-colored document on her tray. "No one wants to embarrass you. We are simply concerned that your condition may be affecting your judgment." She read the first line. Voluntary medical leave and confidentiality agreement. "I'm not signing this." Adrian's smile stayed in place. "You always did confuse defiance with dignity." Elena shifted the tray to one hand and pressed the other against her apron pocket. Across the room, Dante noticed the movement. He also noticed Adrian looking at the pocket instead of her face. "Give me the copies," Adrian whispered. Elena's pulse stumbled. She had never told him she made copies. Then his eyes dropped to the hidden shape beneath the fabric, and his voice became almost tender. "Give me the red book." Elena did not move her hand. "You never knew the book was red." Adrian's smile held, but something behind it tightened. For 1 second, the polished lawyer disappeared, and the man who used to read her private messages while calling it concern looked back at her. "You're tired," he said gently. "Pregnancy can make ordinary details feel threatening." His fingers closed around the edge of her apron. Elena stepped back. The seam tore with a dry, intimate sound. Then came the slap. Now, with Nora clinging to her and the glass dining room locked behind Dante's men, Adrian had already turned violence into procedure. I reacted when she attempted to conceal stolen medical records, he told the room. His voice never rose. No one here wants to criminalize a frightened employee. Blood warmed Elena's lower lip. She tasted copper and humiliation while Caroline Pike, the restaurant manager, approached with both palms open as if calming a dangerous animal. Elena, let's remove the apron and handle this privately. Behind them, the dishwasher continued cycling in the kitchen. Water struck metal. Plates rattled. The ordinary sound made the silence in the dining room feel sharper. Elena looked at Caroline's hand. Don't touch it. Caroline stopped. It's company property. It's evidence. A few donors shifted in their chairs. One woman glanced at Elena's stomach, then at the shattered glasses, as though the size of Elena's body explained the entire scene. Adrian placed a slim audit folder on the nearest table. Her employee ID accessed files connected to Nora's trust. She also copied internal receipts without authorization. Dante finally looked at Elena. His face remained unreadable. Did you? The question was quiet enough that everyone leaned closer. Elena could have lied. She could have said Adrian fabricated everything. Instead, she lifted her chin. I copied receipts. A small breath moved through the room. Caroline looked relieved. Adrian looked almost kind. Thank you, he said. Honesty is the first step. Elena ignored him. Because the totals changed after closing. Tips disappeared. Vendor charges were added to tables that never ordered anything. That is not your department, Caroline said. The money came out of my coworkers' checks. That made it my department. Adrian opened the folder to a printed access report. Her ID was used at 11:47 last night. Elena stared at the time. She remembered 11:47. The kitchen bell had rung twice. A busser had spilled coffee near table 14. Nora had been asleep in the office with her coat over her knees. Elena had been outside signing for a linen delivery because Caroline's second keycard would not open the loading entrance. Check the shift log, Elena said. Caroline's eyes flickered. We already did. Check the original. Not the version printed this morning. Dante's gaze moved to Caroline. He removed his phone, photographed the audit page, then placed it face down. Why would there be two versions? Caroline's mouth opened, but Adrian answered for her. Routine corrections. Staff clock-ins are often adjusted. Elena looked at the report again. Her employee number was correct. The table number was not. It listed table 12. Table 12 had been empty all night, kept open for Dante. She remembered because no one was allowed to seat it without his approval. That transaction couldn't have happened there, she said. Adrian's expression softened with practiced pity. Elena, memory becomes unreliable under stress. Dante lifted his eyes. Table 12. No one answered. He turned slightly toward the security chief. Save last night's footage. The man checked his tablet. His thumb stopped moving. There's a gap, sir. How long? 11 minutes. Adrian exhaled as if disappointed by an inconvenience. Footage involving minors is sometimes removed automatically. Elena looked down at the torn edge of her apron. Caught in the ripped seam was a thin white card that did not belong to her. She pulled it free carefully. It was a second key card, still warm from Adrian's hand, and printed across the bottom in small black letters were the words Master Access. Dante Moretti. The card looked too clean to have been lost by accident. Elena held it between two fingers while the room seemed to narrow around the black letters. Master Access, Dante Moretti. Adrian did not reach for it. That was the first thing Dante noticed. The second was the way Caroline looked at Adrian before she looked at the card. That belongs to Mr. Moretti, Adrian said almost gently. Elena, carrying restricted property will only make this more difficult for you. It was caught in my apron. You're bleeding. You're frightened. Things can become confused. His tone wrapped around the accusation like velvet around a blade. Dante extended one hand. Elena placed the card in his palm. He turned it once beneath the chandelier light. A faint gray scrape marked the magnetic strip, fresh enough to leave plastic dust along the edge. "Mine is in my wallet," he said. No one spoke. Dante did not check immediately. He let the silence lengthen until Caroline's breathing became audible. Then he removed his wallet and placed an identical card beside the first. Same number, same access level, different where. "Take her to the service corridor," Dante said. Adrian's eyes sharpened. "For everyone's protection, I should be present." Dante looked at him. No, the single word emptied the warmth from Adrian's face, though only for a second. Elena walked behind a female security officer into the narrow corridor beyond the kitchen. Fluorescent lights flattened everything. The stainless steel shelves, the damp mop strings, the blood drying at the corner of her mouth. The smell of burnt coffee and dishwasher steam replaced perfume and expensive food. Felt more honest back there. Dante followed but left the door open. 2 staff members remained within sight. He looked at the torn apron. What did he want? Elena reached inside carefully and removed the red guest checkbook. The cover was soft from use, its corners darkened by coffee, grease, and the pressure of her thumb. Adrian gave a quiet laugh from the doorway. "A server's notebook is not forensic evidence." Elena opened it. "No. The carbon copies are." She laid 3 thin receipts across a stainless steel prep table. Each had been voided after closing. Each carried a different vendor name. Each ended with the same merchant code. N17-44. Dante studied the numbers without touching them. "You could have written these." "I could have copied them," Elena said. "I couldn't have made the kitchen print a 6-bottle wine charge on a table that never ordered wine." Adrian stepped closer. "She has no training in finance." Elena looked at him. 2 years of accounting at Harold Washington College. His smile tightened. "Before you dropped out. To care for my mother." The words landed softly, but Adrian looked away first. Elena turned another page. 1 carbon was missing. The torn edge remained, jagged and pale. There was 1 more. "Convenient," Adrian said. A small hand appeared beside Elena's elbow. Nora had followed them without anyone noticing. She wore a cream sweater with sleeves too long for her wrists. Her eyes stayed on Adrian as she reached inside 1 cuff and pulled out a crumpled red square. Elena unfolded it slowly. The missing carbon carried the same code, but this one listed pediatric speech equipment charged to Nora's trust. At the bottom, beside an override mark, someone had written DM Dante's initials. Adrian's voice changed by half a note. "Nora, sweetheart, where did you get that?" The child flinched. Elena moved between them without thinking. "Don't answer him." Dante's gaze settled on her, colder now, but not directed at her. "Why did my daughter hide that receipt from you?" Adrian opened his mouth. Nora pressed the paper into Elena's hand instead of her father's. As Elena smoothed it beneath the light, she saw the date in the upper corner. The charge had been approved at 9:16 p.m. on the night Dante Moretti had been standing on stage in front of 300 people, with both hands visible on the podium. Dante looked at the timestamp for so long that the fluorescent hum above them began to sound like pressure building inside a sealed room. Then he folded the receipt once, not across the numbers, and said, "Boardroom." The private dining room on the 2nd floor had no kitchen noise, no damp towels, no place for a waitress to disappear into work. It was all walnut walls, cream leather chairs, and a table long enough to make Elena feel as though she had been called before a court. 3 foundation board members were already waiting. Caroline stood behind them. Adrian took the chair nearest Dante's right hand, the place of trust. Elena remained standing until a board member glanced at her swollen stomach and said, "Someone should find her a sturdier chair." The concern sounded polite. The word sturdier did not. Elena sat without answering. Her torn apron had been sealed in a clear evidence bag, leaving the shape of her body exposed beneath the fitted black uniform. She could feel every eye avoid looking directly at her while still measuring her. Caroline placed a statement in front of her. "This only confirms that you removed internal documents without permission and became physically agitated when asked to return them. Elena read the page. The word slapped did not appear. Neither did Adrian's hand inside her apron. I won't sign this. Caroline lowered her voice. Refusing may affect your employment review and your maternity benefits. Elena turned her name tag outward.
Elena.
The plastic was scratched, but the letters were still clear. Then write what happened. No one moved. Dante watched Caroline take the ensign's statement back too quickly. He said nothing. Instead, he asked the forensic accountant to place 6 invoices on the table. 5 were original. 1 had been created an hour earlier as a control. The dates, totals, and table numbers were covered. Which one is false? Dante asked. Adrian leaned back. With respect, this is not a meaningful exercise. Ms. Brooks is a server, not an auditor. Then it should be easy for her to fail, Dante said. Silence followed. Elena studied the invoices. Her fingers still trembled from the slap, so she flattened both palms against the table until they stopped. She ignored the totals. She looked at the sequence of charges. 1 invoice listed a corkage fee for outside wine, but no glassware service. Bellwether never charged one without the other. This one, the accountant checked the mark on the back. His expression changed. Correct. A board member cleared his throat. Adrian smiled faintly. A fortunate guess. Elena looked at him. You used to say that whenever I noticed something before you did. His smile stayed in place, but his thumb stopped moving across his phone. Dante noticed. He ordered the access logs displayed on the wall screen. At 9:12 p.m., Elena's employee number had opened the pantry terminal. At 9:13, a MasterCard assigned to Dante opened the service door. At 9:16, the charge to Nora's trust was approved. Across from the log, the live stream showed Dante on stage during all 4 minutes, both hands resting on a podium beneath the foundation seal. Someone cloned his card, Caroline said. Or Elena used the duplicate found in her apron, Adrian replied. His logic was clean, almost kind. Given her admitted possession of copied records, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Elena looked at the screen. Show the kitchen printer log. Adrian's eyes moved to her. Only once. But Dante saw it. The accountant pulled the file. No order had been sent to the kitchen at 9:12. No glassware request. No service ticket. The transaction had existed only long enough to move money. Dante turned to security. Footage. 11 minutes missing. Who authorized removal? Your token, sir. Adrian exhaled softly, as if the answer had settled everything. Then perhaps this is an internal security issue, not a conspiracy involving a pregnant employee. Elena kept looking at the screen. Beneath the authorization code was a smaller timestamp almost hidden by the system footer. Zoom in. The accountant enlarged it. The deletion had been approved at 2:13 a.m. Dante's face did not change. Adrian finally placed his phone face down. At 2:13 that morning, Dante Moretti had been 30,000 feet above the Atlantic in a plane with no network connection. For 3 full seconds, no one in the boardroom moved. The frozen livestream still showed Dante at the podium, his hands visible, while the deletion log insisted his private token had been used thousands of miles away. Adrian was the first to speak. Certificates can be mirrored, he said calmly. That is precisely why Ms. Brooks's possession of a duplicate keycard is concerning. Elena watched him move the accusation back toward her as smoothly as a waiter turning a plate.
No anger. No hesitation.
Just another clean sentence placed over something rotten. Dante did not answer. He looked instead at the clear evidence bag containing Elena's torn apron. The ripped pocket faced outward. A dark line of blood marked the seam where Adrian's knuckles had struck her mouth. Then Dante's gaze shifted beneath the boardroom table, toward the female security officer standing near the door. The phone, he said. Elena's breath caught. It's under the linen cart downstairs. Adrian leaned forward. Any device she concealed should be handled by corporate security. Elena met Dante's eyes. Not corporate security. The room tightened around those 3 words. She had spent years being told not to sound difficult, not to challenge men with titles, not to make ordinary people uncomfortable with the truth. Her lip throbbed. Her back ached beneath the weight of the baby. Still, she kept her voice level. An outside attorney gets the first copy. Then law enforcement. No one here gets the only file. Dante studied her for a moment longer than comfort allowed. Then he nodded once. Do it her way. The phone arrived sealed in a plastic sleeve. It was an old black model with a cracked screen and a corner held together by clear tape. Adrian looked at it with the faint pity people reserved for cheap things they assumed had no power. Elena entered the passcode herself. The voice memo was still running. 17 minutes, 42 seconds. She stopped it, created 2 encrypted copies, and sent them to an independent attorney whose number she had written months earlier on the back of an unpaid hospital invoice. Only then did she press play. At first, there was nothing dramatic. Silverware, a chair scraping, a donor laughing too loudly, Elena's own breathing careful and tired. Then Adrian's voice entered the recording, low and patient. Give me the red book. Elena's recorded voice answered. No, a pause. Fabric moved. By Monday, Adrian continued, you'll have no schedule, no insurance, and no one will believe the father of that baby ever wanted you. The boardroom seemed to lose its air. The slap came next, flat and sudden, followed by glass breaking and Nora's cry. Mom. Elena stopped the audio before the sound could repeat. She could survive hearing herself struck. She was not sure she could survive hearing that word again in front of strangers. Adrian folded his hands. An ugly conversation, he said. Not a confession to financial misconduct. Ms. Brooks recorded me without consent while withholding company property. Context matters. What context makes reaching into her apron appropriate? Dante asked. His voice was almost soft. Adrian did not blink. I believed she possessed protected medical information concerning your daughter. And the baby? Silence. Adrian glanced at Elena before answering. She told me. Elena shook her head. No, I didn't. He turned toward her with practiced disappointment. Elena, please don't make this more painful than it already is. She opened the message thread on the old phone and slid it across the table. The account name read Dante Moretti Secure. One message said, no child of yours enters my family. Another listed the date of her first prenatal appointment. Dante read each line without touching the screen. I never sent these. The forensic analyst pulled the metadata. The messages had been routed through a corporate authentication token issued from the legal suite. For people had access. Adrian's explanation came immediately. Then someone in my department abused the system. I will identify them. Dante finally looked at him. Not at the documents. Not at Elena. Adrian. You knew her due date, he said. Adrian's jaw tightened by less than an inch. Dante leaned back, and the silence that followed was colder than any threat. I never did. The old phone vibrated once against the walnut table, then went still. No one reached for it. Rain had begun tapping the boardroom windows, soft enough to sound ordinary, which made the silence around Adrian feel deliberate. Dante looked at Elena, not at her stomach. How did he know? She understood the question. Not how Adrian knew she was pregnant. How he knew the date, the doctor, the shape of a life Dante had never been allowed to see. Elena opened her purse and removed a faded hospital bracelet. The plastic had yellowed at the edges. Her name was printed correctly. The admission date was not. I went to Northwestern at 12 weeks, she said. There was bleeding. Dante's eyes dropped to the bracelet. Were you alone? Yes. Adrian shifted in his chair. This is becoming unnecessarily personal. Dante did not look at him. Good. One word. Nothing more. Elena laid the bracelet beside the phone. I called your office from the emergency room. I left a voicemail. The next morning I got the message saying you wanted no contact. I never heard a voicemail. I know that now. Her voice did not break. That was worse than tears. Dante turned to the forensic analyst. Hospital access. The man hesitated. We would need authorization. Elena slid the bracelet across the table. You have mine. Adrian leaned forward. Medical records are protected for a reason. Ms. Brooks is under stress. We should not widen a private employment dispute into a fishing expedition. Elena looked at him. You already widened it when you opened my file. His expression barely changed, but his left hand moved over the cuff of his shirt, covering the pulse in his wrist. Dante saw that too. He called one person, not security, not one of the men stationed outside. Mara, he said when the line connected. Outside counsel.
No Moretti contracts.
Pull the trust, employee health access, and legal suite authentication history. Quietly, he ended the call before the woman could ask why. The room cooled by degrees. Elena did not ask what he would give her. She did not mention the hospital bill folded behind her driver's license, or the balance she had been paying $20 at a time. I don't want money, she said. Dante's gaze lifted. What do you want? My name corrected in every report he touched. Nora's money put back. And no one else losing insurance because they asked the wrong question. Adrian smiled with exhausted patience. You are assuming theft before any theft has been established. 40 minutes later, Mara sent the first file. Elena's medical chart had been opened by an account labeled Moretti Family Risk Management 3 hours after her emergency room visit. The authorization traced to Adrian's office. Attached to the same user account was a behavioral services contract billed to Nora's trust. Elena studied the vendor address. Then she pulled one of the red carbon receipts from the evidence bag. There. The board members leaned closer. On both documents, Harbor Avenue had been misspelled Harlber. The same extra letter. The same template error. Mara sent a second file. A guardianship petition. It described Nora as emotionally unreachable, Dante as unstable, and Elena as an inappropriate maternal attachment who had compromised the child's treatment. It requested emergency control of Nora's voting shares through an independent trustee. Adrian Valle. The petition carried Dante's private digital certificate. Dante stared at his own signature for a long time. Then Elena placed one hand over her belly. The baby is yours. The rain seemed to stop, though it had not. Dante did not move toward her. Did you ever hear my voice tell you I didn't want the child? No. Then I built a world where his message felt more believable than coming to me. Adrian's face remained composed, but he no longer looked at Elena. He looked at the door. Dante finally understood why. For years, every complaint, every contract, every warning, every person asking to be heard had passed through Adrian first. And Dante had mistaken access for loyalty. Dante did not accuse Adrian. That would have been mercy. Instead, he closed the guardianship petition, placed both palms on the table, and said, "Freeze the trust." Adrian's hand stopped on the door handle. That would alarm the board. Outside counsel. Dante, think carefully. Copy every file. The room went still. And no one touches Elena's evidence. Adrian turned back slowly. His expression remained composed, but the patience had left his eyes. You are allowing a frightened employee to redirect a family matter she does not understand. Elena pressed the hospital bracelet flat beside the red receipt. Then explain the address. Adrian glanced down. A clerical error. You said the vendors were unrelated. They are. Then why do they make the same mistake? Silence answered before he did. Dante looked toward the ceiling camera. Its red light blinked once. Keep recording. Adrian's eyes lifted. Only for half a second. Enough. Mara arrived with 2 independent auditors and a sealed laptop. She set a cream envelope face down in front of Adrian. We recovered a draft settlement agreement from the legal suite server. Adrian did not touch it. Privileged. Not if it was sent to an employee to conceal assault, Mara said. Elena recognized the paper before the envelope was opened. Same ivory. Stock. Same narrow margins. Same careful language that made surrender sound voluntary. The agreement offered her an apartment, maternity coverage, and $250,000 if she admitted the slap was a mutual confrontation and left Chicago before the hearing. I never received that, Elena said. Adrian leaned back. Then it was never delivered. Dante's voice stayed low. What color was the envelope? Adrian looked at him. I have no idea. Elena did. Blue seal. No one moved. The envelope on the table was still face down. Mara turned it over. A blue legal seal crossed the flap. Adrian's thumb pressed hard against his wedding ring finger, though he wore no ring. Dante said nothing. He simply watched the lie settle. Then Elena noticed the page number showing through the thin paper. Page 8 of 9. There should be 10 pages, she said. Mara opened the envelope. Why? Because their agreements always have a waiver on page 9 and signature blocks on page 10. Adrian's voice sharpened. You are not qualified to interpret legal formatting. I served coffee in your office for 3 years. Elena looked at him. You never looked at me, but I looked at everything. Mara checked the server history. A missing page had been replaced at 6:04 that morning. The original required Elena to surrender the red book, old phone, hospital records, and any recording made by Nora. Dante's gaze moved to the small therapy recorder hanging from his daughter's neck. Adrian followed it. That was his mistake. Nora stepped behind Elena. In the hush, a file began downloading on Mara's laptop. 78%. 83. Adrian's phone vibrated on the table. No one touched it. Caroline stood near the window, pale beneath the reflected gray sky. Elena remembered something small. The night the pantry charge appeared, Caroline had held the master key upside down, pinched between 2 fingers as if afraid of leaving prints. Ask her which hand she used, Elena said. Dante turned to Caroline. Which hand? Caroline looked at Adrian. My right. Elena shook her head. Left. You had coffee in your right hand. 2 cups. Caroline's face collapsed by degrees. He told me. The footage was routine. Adrian stood. This interview is over. Dante did not raise his voice. Sit. Adrian remained standing. The download reached 100%. On screen, reflected in the polished side of a silver tea urn, Caroline handed the cloned keycard to Adrian outside the pantry. Adrian looked at Elena then, not as a waitress, not as a woman he could document into silence, but as the person who had remembered the one detail his plan had failed to erase. Dante moved to Elena's side without touching her. Mara closed the door. For the first time, Adrian understood she was no longer standing alone. By 9 the next morning, the bellwether glass room had been stripped of flowers and champagne and turned into a hearing chamber. The same tables where donors had watched Elena bleed now held microphones, evidence bags, and the red guest checkbook Adrian had tried to tear from her apron. Outside, cameras crowded the sidewalk. Inside, no one spoke above a whisper. Elena entered through the front doors. Her cheek was swollen. Her lips split beneath a thin line of dried blood, and her black uniform no longer hid the curve of her 7-month pregnancy. She had pinned her name tag facing outward.
Elena.
Adrian stood at the far end of the room in a gray suit, surrounded by attorneys who looked expensive enough to make lies appear official. He did not look frightened. This, he began, is a tragic case of a vulnerable employee becoming emotionally entangled with a powerful family. His voice carried the same polished sympathy he had used before the slap. The receipts were stolen. The audio was obtained without context. The manager is under pressure. The child is traumatized. Every piece of evidence has been contaminated by Dante Moretti's influence. Elena felt the room turn toward Dante, waiting for the dangerous man to become dangerous. He did not. He sat with both hands flat on the table, motionless. Elena placed the torn apron beneath the document camera. The rip ran from the outside inward. He wasn't trying to protect a file, she said. He was trying to take one. Next came the red carbon receipt with Nora's trust code. The time clock slip placing. Elena in the ballroom. The cloned MasterCard. The deleted footage log. The old phone with Adrian's voice threatening her insurance. The hospital bracelet linked to the unauthorized medical access. The false contract. The guardianship petition. The settlement page demanding every copy, recording, and receipt she possessed. One by one, the objects filled the screen above them. Adrian answered each with something reasonable. Misfiled records, clerical overlap, unauthorized subordinates, emotional misunderstanding. One document can be misunderstood, Elena said. 9 documents repeating the same lie are a system. The silence afterward felt physical. Adrian turned toward Nora. A child in her condition cannot be treated as a reliable witness. Elena moved before Dante did. She knelt beside the girl. You don't have to prove anything. Nora's small fingers closed around the therapy recorder hanging from her neck. She looked at Elena, then at her father. Dante's face changed for the first time. Not anger, fear. The kind a powerful man feels when he realizes his child has been carrying terror alone. Nora placed the recorder beneath the microphone and pressed play. At first, there was only her breathing. Thin, uneven. Then Adrian's voice came through the speaker from behind the pantry door. Use Elena's number. Delete 11 minutes. By the time she speaks, she'll be unemployed, pregnant, and documented as unstable. Caroline's voice trembled. What if Nora tells him? Adrian laughed softly. No one listens to children who don't talk. The recording continued. He described the forged petition, the stolen certificate, the plan to control Nora's shares. He explained how Elena's pregnancy would be used to make Dante look reckless and her look desperate. No one in the room moved. Dante went pale. His eyes remained on Nora, not Adrian. He had built guarded homes, armored cars, private schools, and rooms full of men carrying guns. None of it had protected his daughter from the person sitting beside him at dinner. Elena reached over and stopped the recorder before Nora's frightened breathing could become public spectacle. The crime is public, she said. Her fear is not. Dante closed his eyes once. When he opened them, something in him had gone colder than rage. Adrian rose. Dante, you know how this looks. Dante looked at the signature on the forged petition, then at the bruised waitress his system had called unstable, then at the child who had trusted her before she trusted him. Her truth was true before I knew the baby was mine, he said. He stood, removed his private trustee seal from his pocket, and placed it on the table beside the evidence. Then he looked at Mara. Call the prosecutor. Adrian did not disappear into a private room or the back seat of an unmarked car. He was escorted through Bellwether's front doors in handcuffs while the same cameras he had hoped would humiliate Elena recorded his face. The prosecutor froze the guardianship petition before noon. By Friday, Nora's trust was under independent control, every vendor payment was locked, and Dante's private certificate had been revoked. The investigation widened slowly the way real consequences do. Adrian was charged with assault, fraud, obstruction, unlawful access to medical records, and forgery. His law license was suspended before the criminal case was finished. Caroline kept her job only long enough to cooperate. Then she stood before the restaurant staff and read every false disciplinary report aloud, including Elena's. Her voice shook when she reached the line describing Elena as emotionally unstable. That statement was fabricated, Caroline said. Elena Brooks reported missing wages and suspicious charges. I helped punish her for telling the truth. Elena did not tell her it was okay. It wasn't, she said. Fix the others. So they did. Every withheld tip was returned with interest. Every terminated employee received an independent review. Maternity coverage could no longer be canceled by a manager. Complaints no longer passed through one legal office. Dante surrendered his sole control over the foundation and put workers, doctors, and outside trustees on the board. Cost him power. That was how Elena knew he meant it. Her own file was corrected in writing. Not quietly. Her name appeared in the final board record beside the words whistleblower and protected witness. The hospital balance that had once been used to frighten her was handled through a court-approved restitution fund, the same fund created from money recovered from Adrian's fake vendors. Dante offered her more. A house, a driver, private account. Elena refused all three. I need choices, she told him. Not another man arranging my life. He absorbed the sentence without defending himself. Months later, Elena finished the accounting program she had abandoned when her mother got sick. Bellwether created an employee integrity office that reported to the independent board, and Elena agreed to lead it only after her salary, authority, and protections were written into a contract reviewed by her own attorney. She still worked one Sunday brunch each month. Not because she needed to prove she remembered where she came from, because she loved the sound of a dining room running honestly. Silverware placed without fear, kitchen bells ringing on time, servers keeping every dollar they earned. On her first shift back, the glass room looked different. Or maybe she did. The old stain where the wine glass had shattered was gone. Sunlight warmed the floor. Her baby slept in a carrier near Dante's table while Nora colored beside him. Dante did not reach for the child until Elena nodded. "May I?" he asked. She placed their son in his arms. The most feared man in Chicago held the baby as though trust had weight. Nora crossed the room carrying Elena's old name tag. The plastic had been cleaned, though a faint brown mark remained near one corner. Elena was printed on the front. On the back, in purple crayon, the word MOM still leaned crookedly across the plastic. Elena knelt until they were eye level. "You never owe me that word." Nora nodded. "I know. Then why do you want it?" Nora glanced at the baby, then at Dante, then back at Elena. "Because you listened when nobody listened to me." Elena let Nora pin the tag to her clean apron. Her name faced the room. Mom rested behind it, close to her heart. Later, after the last table had left, Elena sat with Dante and Nora near the kitchen doors. 3 cups of coffee steamed between them, hers hot for once. Her old cracked phone lay beside the red guest checkbook she had chosen to keep. Dante looked at the phone, then at her. "What do you want this family to become?" Elena wrapped both hands around the warm cup. "A place where nobody has to bleed before they're believed." Dante went silent. This time, the silence was not a weapon. It was the sound of a powerful man finally learning to listen.